My name is Eleanor Hayes, though most folks who still remember me just call me Ellie. I turned 79 last April, and I live in a small brick house that sits a stone's throw from Willow Creek, a slow, coffee-colored river that winds behind the abandoned cotton mill on the south side of town. People say rivers forget. I've learned they remember everything. For the last 5 years, I've needed a walker to get around. Arthritis carved its name into my knees the way the river carves its name into stone. Slow, patient, impossible to argue with. But my mind is clear, and my lungs still know how to pull air deep when they have to. That matters more than most people think. My husband Harlan died 25 years ago in the plant explosion that made the front page of every paper from here to Atlanta. The settlement was $2 million, more money than a mill worker's widow ever expected to see. Harlan used to joke that if anything ever happened to him, I'd be set for life. He never imagined how many lives would try to set themselves on mine. There's my daughter Ruth, 48 now, thin-shouldered, always tired. She married Victor 10 years ago, a man with a salesman's smile and a real estate license he waves like a flag. Then there's my nephew Caleb, my late sister's boy, 35 going on 50, forever in the middle of some sure thing that needs one more investor. They orbit me the way crows orbit something bright and dying. On the last Friday in September, Victor suggested an outing. "The riverbank's beautiful this time of year, Mom," he said over the phone, voice warm as fresh bread. "Doctor says fresh air is the best medicine. We'll bring the wheelchair. You won't have to walk a step." I should have heard the hunger underneath the kindness. I didn't. They arrived at 3 o'clock in Victor's silver SUV that still smelled of new leather even after 4 years. Ruth sat in the back with me, eyes on her phone. Caleb rode shotgun, drumming his fingers on the armrest like a man waiting for a train he's already missed. We took the old service road behind the mill. The pavement gave way to gravel, then to a wooden fishing deck that juts out over the deepest part of the bend. The railing rotted away years ago. The county never replaced it. Below us, the river moved slow and thick, the color of strong tea. Victor unfolded the loaner wheelchair from the hospital, the one with the cracked vinyl seat. Caleb pushed me to the very edge of the deck. I remember the wheels creaking, the way the planks flexed under our weight. Victor knelt in front of me, all concern. "Mom, we brought the trust papers. Just one signature. It moves everything into a protected account for your safety." I looked at the papers. I had seen copies of earlier versions, pages and pages of fine print that quietly moved my money into accounts only Victor could touch. I looked up at him, at the man who kissed my cheek at Christmas and called me Mom like it still meant something. "No," I said. The single word hung in the air like a dropped glass. Victor's smile thinned. Caleb's hands tightened on the chair handles. Ruth kept staring at her phone, thumb frozen mid-scroll. "Ellie, we're doing this for you," Caleb whispered, voice cracking. "We're doing this for you." Then the push. It wasn't violent. That's the part that haunts me. It was almost gentle, one firm shove, the way you slide a book back onto a shelf. The world flipped. Sky became water. Water became everything. The cold was instant and absolute. It punched the air from my lungs and filled my ears with a roaring silence. I sank fast, wool skirt, cardigan, the weight of 79 years all dragging me down. But I did not panic. When I was 9, my brothers and I swam this river every summer before the upstream dam slowed the current. We knew every eddy, every sandbar, every sunken log. Your body remembers what your mind has forgiven time for forgetting. I kicked off my loafers, let the skirt billow, then twisted my hips and slipped out of it like a snake shedding skin. Kicked again, slow, deliberate strokes that cost everything but bought me inches. The river here is 12 feet deep, but 20 feet downstream, the old sandbar rises to within 3 feet of the surface. I angled toward it, counting heartbeats instead of seconds. My fingers scraped sand. I pushed up. My head broke water beneath the overhang of the deck itself, hidden in shadow. I clung to a barnacled piling, gasping quietly, hair plastered to my face like seaweed. And I listened. Victor, already walking away. She's gone. Colonel'll take her half a mile before anyone notices. Caleb, voice trembling with something between terror and triumph. 2 million clear after the debts. We did it. Ruth said nothing. Not one word. That silence cut deeper than the cold. I waited until their footsteps faded completely, then pulled myself hand over hand along the underside of the deck until I reached the muddy bank beneath the willows. I crawled out like something newborn, shivering, filthy, and furious. I sat there a long time, water dripping from my chin, watching dragonflies skate silver across the surface. The sun was low and red, painting everything the color of fresh blood. Something inside me that had been bent for decades straightened with a sound I almost heard. They thought the river had finished me. They were wrong. The river had only just begun. I stood up slowly, legs shaking, and started the long walk home along the towpath. Every step was pain, but pain is honest, and I had lived too long surrounded by lies. By the time I reached my own back porch, the sky had gone indigo. I looked like something dragged up from the bottom, mud-streaked, dripping, eyes too bright. I unlocked the door with fingers that barely worked, stepped inside, and closed it behind me. The house smelled exactly the same. Lemon oil, old books, the ghost of Harlan's pipe tobacco that never quite left the curtains. Nothing had changed, and everything had. I peeled off the ruined clothes, left them in a sodden pile by the washer, and wrapped myself in Harlan's old flannel robe that still hung on the back of the bathroom door. I made tea with hands that shook so hard the spoon rattled against the cup like a tiny bell. I did not call the police. Not yet. They needed to believe I was dead a little longer. Dead women don't fight back. Dead women don't freeze accounts. Dead women don't change locks and wills and the entire shape of their future. I sat at the kitchen table in the half-dark, steam curling from the mug, and began to plan. The river had given me a second life. I intended to use it. I didn't sleep that first night. I sat in Harlan's old armchair with the lamp turned low, robe pulled tight, and listened to the house settle around me like a loyal dog. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like footsteps. Every car that passed on the road outside made my heart stutter. But no one came. Of course they didn't. They thought the river had done their work for them. At 4:17 a.m., I rose, stiff and cold, and dressed in the dark. Warm slacks, thick socks, the brown cardigan Harlan bought me the last Christmas we had together. I moved quietly, the way you move when you're no longer sure who the house belongs to. I made coffee instead of tea, strong and black, the way Harlan drank it when we were young and pulling double shifts at the mill. Then I opened the fire safe in the closet, the one Victor never knew existed because Harlan installed it himself behind the winter coats. Inside were the things I had quietly protected over the years,
the original settlement papers, my marriage certificate, Harlan's discharge papers from the Army, and a plain manila folder labeled simply, "In case." I had started that folder 10 years ago when the first small loan requests began. Every suspicious statement, every unsigned document Victor left for later, every email I printed when I still had the energy to fight. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. I carried it to the kitchen table and spread the pages under the lamp like a deck of cards. Numbers stared back at me. My life translated into withdrawals and transfers. $9,400 for home modifications that never happened. $27,000 to an LLC in Victor's name. $4,200 a month listed as caregiver stipend to Ruth, who hadn't spent a single night under my roof in 6 years.
I read until the sun came up, pale and thin, through the east window. Then I showered, dressed properly, pinned my hair, and drove myself to the Willow Creek Credit Union the minute they opened their doors. Mrs. Rosa Delgado has been manager there for 15 years. She took one look at my face and closed her office door. "Ellie Hayes, you look like you crawled out of your own grave." "Close enough," I said, and laid the folder on her desk. 2 hours later, every account bearing my name was frozen pending review. Every automatic payment was canceled. Every power of attorney document Victor had coaxed me into signing was flagged for immediate revocation. Rosa printed me a stack of statements 3 inches thick. When she handed it over, her eyes were wet. "I always wondered why you let him handle everything," she whispered. "Because love makes fools of us all," I said. "But I'm done being a fool." I stopped at the hardware store on the way home and bought new locks. The young man behind the counter offered to install them for me. I told him I was perfectly capable, and I was. By noon, I had changed every lock on every door and set the old keys in a neat pile on the porch railing like a message. That afternoon, Caleb came knocking. He stood on the porch in the same nervous crouch he'd had since he was 12, shoulders up, eyes darting, fingers tugging at the hem of his jacket. "Elle, I just need—" "No," I said. He blinked. "It's only $20,000, just to keep the partners happy until—" "No, Caleb." His face flushed red, then white. "You don't understand, though I understand perfectly," I said. "You pushed me into the river last night. I understand that better than anything." The blood drained from his face so fast I thought he might faint. I didn't mean." "You did." He opened his mouth, closed it, backed down the steps like I was something contagious. He left without another word. His truck roared away, throwing gravel like accusations. I closed the door, slid the new deadbolt home, and for the first time in years, the house felt like it belonged to me again. That night I slept, really slept, curled under the quilt my grandmother pieced the year the war ended. I dreamed of the river, but it wasn't cold anymore. It was warm and slow, and carrying me somewhere bright. The next morning, I went to the mill. The old cotton mill has been closed since '98, but the new owners installed security cameras last spring after teenagers kept breaking in to drink and dive off the fishing deck. 4 cameras, motion activated, high definition. One pointed straight down the length of the deck where they pushed me. I parked my old Buick in the weeds and walked the 1/4 mile to the office trailer. My knees complained, but they carried me. The site manager was a woman named Marla, 50-something, sunburned arms, voice like whiskey and honey. She took one look at me leaning on my cane and offered coffee.
I handed her the flash drive I had prepared the night before, empty but official looking. I need the footage from camera 3, last Friday between 4 and 5 p.m., I said. She raised an eyebrow. That's not public access, Mrs. Hayes, I supplied. And it's evidence in an attempted murder, mine. The trailer went very quiet. Marla studied my face the way you study a storm coming across open water. Then she nodded once and led me inside. The footage was worse than memory. There I was, small, hunched, wrapped in the blue shawl Ruth gave me 3 Christmases ago. Victor kneeling, all false kindness. Caleb behind the chair, hands gripping like he was holding destiny itself. Ruth, 10 feet away, face turned, thumb scrolling on her phone as if the world depended on one more mindless swipe. Then, the push. My body folding forward, arms flailing once, the awful silence of the fall. The splash. Marla's hand went to her mouth. They walked away without even looking over the edge. Marla burned the footage onto my drive without a word. When she handed it back, her fingers lingered on mine. "You going to the sheriff today?" she asked. "Tomorrow," I said. "Today, I have one more stop." I drove to the law office above the hardware store. Daniel Reeves, attorney at law. Daniel handled Harlan's settlement all those years ago. He's 81 now, half retired, but sharp as winter air. He took one look at me and stood up so fast his glasses slid down his nose. "Eleanor Hayes, you sit down and tell me what in the Sam Hill is going on." I laid the drive on his desk like it was made of nitroglycerin. "My family tried to kill me for $2 million, I said. "I need you to help me make sure they never touch another penny of it, or me, again." Daniel watched the video without blinking. When it ended, he removed his glasses, cleaned them slowly, then put them back on. "Well," he said at last, voice soft, "I always did think Victor was a son of a bitch. Looks like I was kinder than he deserved." We worked all afternoon. New trust, new durable power of attorney naming my granddaughter Lillian as agent, medical directives, everything airtight and irrevocable. When we finished, Daniel locked the flash drive in his safe and looked me dead in the eye. "You ready for what comes next, Ellie?" "I was born ready," I said. "I just forgot for a while." That night, I cooked supper for the first time in months. Pork chops, fresh green beans, cornbread from scratch. I set the table for one, ate slowly, and felt the house settle around me like it approved. I was no longer waiting to be rescued. I was the rescue. The storm broke 3 days later. Victor showed up first, Tuesday, just after 3, roaring up the driveway in his silver SUV like he still owned the road. I watched from the kitchen window as he slammed the door and strode to the porch, face red, tie askew. I opened the door before he could pound. "Where the hell have you been?" he shouted. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I know exactly what I've done," I said. He pushed past me into the house, old habit, then realized the locks were new and I hadn't actually invited him in. He stopped in the middle of the living room like a man who just noticed the floor is gone. "The accounts are frozen," he hissed. "Everything. I can't pay the mortgage. You can't steal from me anymore," I finished. His eyes narrowed. "You're confused, Mom. You've been forgetting things. Ruth's worried sick. Ruth was worried enough to watch you push me into the river." The color drained from his face. "You fell," he said quickly. "It was an accident. You leaned too far." "I have it on video, Victor."
He laughed, short, ugly, desperate. There's no camera on that old deck. There is now. The laugh died. He stepped closer, voice dropping. Whatever you think you have, we can fix this. Family takes care of family. You stopped being family the moment you put your hands on that chair. He stared at me a long moment, something flickering behind his eyes. Fear. Maybe the first honest thing I'd seen there in years. You'll ruin us all, he whispered. You did that yourselves. He left without another word, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. 2 hours later, the sheriff's cruiser pulled in. Quiet, no lights, no siren. Sergeant Wilcox and Deputy Alvarez, both women I'd known since they were girls in pigtails. I invited them in, offered coffee, handed over the flash drive. They watched the video in silence. When it ended, Sergeant Wilcox removed her hat and held it against her chest. Mrs. Hayes, do you want us to take you somewhere safe? I am somewhere safe, I said, for the first time in years. They arrested Victor leaving the country club, Caleb the next morning at his apartment. Ruth was questioned but not charged. Standing by isn't a crime the law can name, though it's a crime all the same. She came to me the night before the preliminary hearing, soaked from the rain, looking every day of her 48 years. Mama, she whispered, I didn't know he'd really do it. You knew enough to look away. She cried then, ugly, wrenching sobs that belonged to a much younger woman. I let her cry. I did not offer tea. I did not offer comfort. Some things you have to sit with alone. Spring came early that year. I sold the brick house on Willow Creek. Too many shadows in the corners, too many echoes of footsteps that never belonged there. With Lillian's help, I bought a small white cottage 3 blocks from the ocean. Nothing grand, just wide windows, a porch that faces east, and the constant sound of waves telling the truth over and over. I kept only what mattered: Harlan's watch, our wedding album, the teapot we bought on our honeymoon, the quilt my grandmother pieced the year the war ended. The rest I gave away or sold. Let someone else carry the weight of those memories. Victor took a plea, 12 years. Caleb, 8. Ruth got probation and a court order to stay 500 feet away unless I say otherwise. Some Sundays, Lillian drives me to the prison outside Raleigh. I sit across from Ruth in the cold visiting room, and we talk about weather and her job and the price of gas. We never talk about the river. Maybe one day we will. Maybe we won't. Either way, the silence between us now is honest, and that is something. I walk the beach every morning, cane tapping the wet sand, gulls circling overhead like white commas in a long sentence I'm finally allowed to finish. I am 80 now. My knees still ache when storms roll in, but my heart is steady. People ask if I'm angry. I'm not. Anger is fire, and fire burns out. But I feel is closer to tide, slow, relentless, impossible to hold back. The river didn't kill me. It washed me clean. And if you're listening to this, wherever you are, whatever age you are, whatever water someone has tried to drown you in, hear me. You are stronger than they know. You are deeper than they can measure. And the current that feels like it's pulling you under may be the very thing carrying you home. Choose yourself, not after they break you, before. The tide always turns. Be standing on the shore when it does. Subscribe our channel, Martha Stories, and share your thoughts and comments. I will read every comment and reply you back. Martha.